right, and welcome back to the Browns Beat podcast. Quick turnaround from our last podcast. I know some of you guys are probably thinking like, whoa, it should be illegal for us to record podcasts this quickly after the dry off season we've had, but there's stuff to report on. I was supposed to say hockey. Football is now getting exciting once again, and Derek, the Browns kicked it off week 1 of the preseason against the Green Bay Packers. Derek, how are you feeling? How you been? And just kind of give us an overall, like a quick little summary into some major talking points in regards to this game.
Yeah. So first things first, Browns lost 23-10. Most important thing of the day for me, Tristan, was the white face mask new helmet looks unreal. It is a great, clean, beautiful look. Beautiful. So I don't know what it is, why the Browns wear white when we're at home for the preseason. We've done that like the last few years, but you know, get kind of showcasing the new helmets a little early. I like it. But yeah, it was kind of a rough day on the scoreboard, but there's a lot of positives. There's certainly some negatives. But yeah, I guess let's just dive into it, starting off with the first part here. Tristan, kind of one of the few bright spots on the day. The defensive line for the Cleveland Browns looked pretty good. Didn't necessarily put up the numbers as far as like sacks and things such as that, but getting pressure, creating disruption in the backfield. I thought a few guys in particular did a really good job, but when it comes to the defensive line, what did you see from the game, and what do you take away from that?
Yeah. So it's something that I think absolutely you're right. It's a ginormous bright spot into in this game, in a game that we lost. Which preseason. Honestly, like I can't stress this enough. Results don't matter in preseason. You want to look at individual players, how they're performing, how they fit into the mold. The year that we went 0-16, we were 4-0 in the preseason. I would have gladly traded all 4 of those wins for just one regular season win any day of the week. Yeah. But it's just not how life works, unfortunately. But no, I think you're spot on. The D-line, the biggest thing for me, what I liked with the D-line, this is year 2 into Jim Schwartz. Last year, that D-line looked great. And the most positive thing I can take away from that group in general, they have an identity in their depth as well. These guys that could potentially have to chip in, play here or there, maybe there's an injury along the D-line, they got to fill in and take a step, take a bigger role. These guys know what they're doing. And they're able to produce, and that's the important thing, is that we play with an identity along that front where we're gonna rush the passer, we're gonna bull rush, we're gonna push back that line every single time. And a lot of great players. I thought some guys stood out in particular. Predominantly for me, the first one that I saw where I was like, ooh, wow, like he's really moving the line, Quentin Jefferson for me. I thought that he had a really, really good showing. Had a few times where, man, he was just absolutely just obliterating the guys lined up in front of him. I didn't see a ton of Michael Hall, but what I saw of him I thought was promising, especially when we look at his technique. I don't know if you remember this, Derek, but when we were talking about Michael Hall previously, I said, being undersized but being quick and powerful, he almost reminds me of, and I was very hesitant when I said this, of Aaron Donald. And then we have Zadarius Smith coming out saying the exact same thing, which, obviously, he must have heard me say it. He knows I know ball. But
there you go.
Zadarius, if you're watching, bro. No, okay. But no, I thought he looked fairly promising. I thought, I believe I saw a few snaps where Isaiah Thomas was looking okay. I thought he had some good moments. Really along the whole D line, I thought that there were some guys that really showed out and showed that they are going to be fighting for a spot on this team and fighting to potentially fill an even bigger role moving forward.
Yeah, that whole defensive line for the most part stood out. You brought him up, Mike Hall Jr. I specifically was paying attention to him as much as I possibly could. The speed at which he comes off the ball is insane. I mean, for a guy who a lot of people kind of took him as a one-trick pony as far as being an interior pass rusher, I thought he did a really good job stopping the run. There was multiple times in that game where he was a part of stuffing some, short down stops and got the job done. I thought Mike Hall looked really, really good. So very, very promising there, and everything that you said, his technique, everything looked good for me. I mean, Mike Hall is Mike Hall. I think he is what he was at Ohio State. He's a guy who is going to be a disruptor. He's going to get pass rush. Might not equate to a bunch of sacks on the stat sheet, but he's an impact player, and those guys are very, very valuable, especially in the Schwartz defense. Isaiah McGuire and Isaiah Thomas.
Forgot to mention Isaiah McGuire.
Both of those two. Yes, both of those two looked really, really good. McGuire being a guy that I had really high hopes for and I think can be a pretty solid role player for this team. I had really high expectations when we drafted him, Tristan. I hope that he can develop into a rotation piece at the very least. But he looked really good. And then Isaiah Thomas. Isaiah Thomas is a tough one because he looked bigger, he looked stronger, he looked faster. And, for the Browns, he's somebody that we kind of probably were hoping to stash on the practice squad. And I don't know if you really can. If he continues to play at the level that he did, it's going to be really tough. Because if you'll remember, Isaiah Thomas, we got him in the 7th round, but that wasn't because of play. That was some character issue stuff.
He was a projected third round pick at the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, for the most part, we haven't heard anything negative as far as the off-the-field stuff with him. And if he's unable to make it on this final 53, I'm certain there's going to be a team out there that would love to have Isaiah Thomas join their squad. Now, I want to talk about a negative here for a minute. Tristan, I don't know how much you saw of this gentleman, but Siaki Ika is reaching Kellen Mond territory for me. I would love nothing more than to ship his big ass onto a boat into Lake Erie, sail him up to the CFL because that's where he belongs. Siaki Ika sucks. Like, wow. I want him to be good so bad, but Siaki Ika is awful. He's awful. This is preseason football, and this man was on the ground more times than I can count. And he didn't even play that much, right? Tristan, this is a guy we drafted in the 3rd round who was a healthy scratch all year last year. This is a guy that we were hoping is going to be fighting for a spot this year to make some sort of impact in year 2. He's useless. Like, I'm sorry. There's just no other way of putting it. Siaki Ika, especially compared to the guys that he's around, right? When you look at what you talked about, Quentin Jefferson played well. We know what Mo Hurst is. Mike Hall, I was impressed with him. And then all these other defensive ends that can also move and play inside. Yeah, Ika, pack your bags, pal, because you might as well just get ready to leave now. He was awful. Absolutely awful.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm not going to disagree with you. For me, the biggest point for me when it comes to Siaki Ika is he needed to be a star in this game, especially because you're picked in the 3rd round. You had a whole year where you didn't play a single snap. Your main goal was to get in the building, work on your craft, develop, and just improve. And he came in as a Jim Schwartz project, and I was very optimistic, and I still would hold some optimism. I gotta imagine there's a reason why Schwartz wanted him, and I gotta imagine that there's a reason why, if he was a big issue, we wouldn't have traded him by now. I'm sure that there's a team out there that would love to take a flyer on him and has some type of depth linebacker that they'd like to give up that we would take a shot on. I'm sure that's out there, and I'm sure it exists. Like we traded Mac Wilson for Chase Winovich, which by the way was a terrible trade, but I mean Mac Wilson wasn't really going to play for us that much. But regardless, I think that I'm gonna wait until after this next preseason game before I'm with you, Derek. But I understand why you're there because it's a guy that he's a 3rd-round pick. He's got to be better. He's got to be better, and he's got to be a dominant force, and he wasn't that. But I'm gonna give him one more preseason game because, listen, for a guy that we talk about it with Deshaun, with him not playing football at all for over a year and a half, Siaki Ika was pretty much the same. Like he hasn't played downs of football since last preseason. So I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait and see how he looks after this next preseason game, and then I'll kind of make up my final kind of opinion, my on what I think we should do with him. But I think going into this week of preseason, he absolutely is on thin ice, absolutely. And I think if he doesn't have a good preseason game, they absolutely should look to potentially move him, swap him for somebody who may get cut from another team that would make ours. And I mean, who would be that would be interested in Siaki Ika? Who knows? But or even like a 7th-round pick. Who cares, right? Like something. Got to get something. But yeah, man, I'm with you. I hear you.
It's just so frustrating because it's like when we drafted Ika, the whole conversation was, Jim Schwartz and these big, just kind of nose tackles, right? He can bring the most out of them. Man, Siaki Ika is up there with some of the worst Browns defensive tackles so far. And that's all without him playing in any real games because he hasn't seen the field in any real games. Yeah, I mean, I'm not concerned whatsoever about the defensive line for the Browns. I think our secondary kind of looked a little spotty. Ronnie Hickman, first drive, I want to say, they said it was a back injury. It looked like he pulled a quad or something.
It looked weird. But, I mean, for me, I was wondering, like, it looked like they had him lined at corner, which I thought was weird. Like, was that right? Or was that just, like, how he played it and how he looked? Like, for me, it looked like they lined him at corner or, like, at minimum in the slot, which I just don't know if that's Ronnie's spot. But, yeah, he got burned. He got burned bad. But, I mean, could have been injury related. Yeah.
If I remember correctly, it almost looked like he was supposed to cover the flat, and then nobody went out there, so he was like, well, I'll just,
I don't know. It looked weird.
I don't know.
It looked weird, which, I mean, hey, if you're going to have coverage breakdowns or weird plays happen, have them happen now, So.
Preseason. Yep. Yeah. Side note, one thing that I forgot to mention that we'll throw in here. Guy that I was not really a fan of signing, Devin Bush, I thought looked pretty good so far in the preseason game 1. What does that mean? I don't know. It's a preseason, but definitely a positive. Mohamed Diabate, same thing. I thought he kind of flashed yet again. So, yeah, there's some good things there. Tristan, the Browns, I don't know what it is. We just got some preseason warriors. And one of them we'll talk about here next. But there's just some guys, man, that just pop off for us in the preseason. Who's the running back? Kelly?
John Kelly, yeah. Although he had a fumble, didn't he?
Every year. Yeah, he didn't have a great showing.
But typically he
year.
is. Yeah, I hear you, though.
Yeah, man. Preseason
football, man.
Can't be
preseason football. It's the best. Devin Bush. Let's talk about him for a minute. You were very hesitant with the signing. Let's be kind. You didn't like it. And I remained optimistic, right? And once again, like usual on the show, I am correct. I'm kidding. It's one preseason game. It's one preseason game. I'm not going there. But no, like this is what I was hoping we were going to get from Devin Bush, was a guy that had athleticism, that could be decent in coverage at very minimum. I wanted to see him be at least a guy that wasn't a liability, similar to like Ika, where I don't know if there was anything that he particularly thrived in, but Ika, I mean, you could put him in almost any situation, he was fine, right? Like even in coverage situations, Ika was solid. And I feel like Devin Bush in this game showed that promise, that what I was hoping to get from him. In the first, I guess the first thing I'd notice with Devin Bush, he's a very, very secure tackler. He's good with tackling. In positioning himself in a way where he's not gonna get beat, and being able to wrap up and get a guy to the ground. I thought that he did a really, really good job of that in particular, which as a linebacker, that's obviously very necessary. But over the years here in Cleveland, we haven't always seen that. So, I'm excited to see what he can do with a bigger role against better talent. Seeing what he can do with more reps is what I'd say. Let's see where he can go. But the other guy that you mentioned, oh my goodness, Diabate. Yes, Diabate. In my notes here, I put he's a mini JOK. He is he's the square root of JOK. Like he's just a condensed version of him. And what we get from him in the preseason, and like what we've gotten from him last year, what we've gotten from him this year, he's a guy that like I feel like if for whatever reason, I'm confident he's going to be on the roster this year. If for whatever reason next year he's not, or he gets traded or something, he's somebody that could pop up, and like I think he could play at an NFL level for at least a few years as a starter, because he has got the talent. He's got the talent. Give the linebacking coach, I believe his name's Jason Tarver. I don't know if I've got the first name right, but I know I've got the last name right, Tarver. This is a guy that's been developing these linebackers really, really well. I mean, JOK, the difference under oh my goodness, I'm forgetting the guy's name. Joe Woods. I tried to erase him from my memory. The difference between him under Joe Woods and him under Jim Schwartz obviously was drastic, right? It was night and day difference, right? And I think that while a lot of the credit should go to Jim Schwartz, rightfully so, I think that Tarver also deserves some credit there. Diabate's another guy that we can tip our hat to. I'm pretty sure Diabate was an undrafted free agent. And look at what we're getting out of him in preseason. I want to see what he looks like in regular season ball. More snaps from him, seeing what he could do. Because he's just such an intriguing player for me.
Yeah, no, especially with the way this linebacker room is shaking out, you have a lot of guys kind of on the bubble. Tony Fields, with Sione Takitaki being gone, with Anthony Walker being gone, that room's going to look a lot different. Now, you bring in Devin Bush, you bring in, I almost said
Jordan
Anthony
Hicks.
Barr. It's not Anthony Barr. Jordan Hicks, yeah. That room's going to look different, but I do think there's room for opportunity there. I think if Diabate wants to really make a name for himself, I think he can absolutely take Tony Fields' job. And, I loved what we saw from Devin Bush, but again, his issues are not play, it's injuries. So, there's room for opportunity there. He's got a window. It's just going to be a matter of how does everything shake out. That's what it comes down to. But yeah, there was something else I was going to add, but I totally forgot. So.
Totally okay. Nathaniel Watson, I will just take a moment and say, like, I thought you looked good. I thought you looked decent. I didn't think he necessarily was somebody who stole the show. Like, I know that there's some people that thought that he was, as far as among the linebackers, the one that stood out the most. I disagree, but I thought it was a solid showing, and you need that from a late round pick, especially if he's going to make the team. but I agree with you on the Tony Fields thing where, with Tony Fields, it's, we got to see him get on the field. No pun intended. Um, you know, because Diabate, every time I see him on the field, he's electric.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. Nathaniel Watson, I thought he looked solid. I wasn't blown away, but yeah, that linebacker room is gonna be fascinating, to say the least. It's definitely interesting.
Yeah.
Moving on here to another room that is interesting in its own way. Tristan, we know the top two quarterbacks for the Browns. We know it's going to be Deshaun Watson. We know Jameis Winston's going to be the backup. DTR was, I would say, massively disrespected given the situations he was put in last year. And the Browns go out. They sign Tyler Huntley. And everybody kind of assumed DTR was out the door. And I wouldn't say Tyler Huntley necessarily played bad in this game, but DTR looked incredible. 14 of 18, 134 yards, had a touchdown, but it was taken back. Tyler Huntley, on the flip side, 6 of 9, 41 yards. So obviously very different as far as the amount of snaps given, but DTR, Tristan, at least for me, I thought he looked much more comfortable. He looked much more poised going through his progressions. There was a lot of times, and we'll talk about the offensive line situation here in a few, but I thought both quarterbacks were under a tremendous amount of pressure. DTR, this year compared to last year, he didn't panic. He seemed to calmly go through his progressions and extend plays, make plays. Again, going 14 to 18, even though it's a preseason, that's still a pretty good stat line. And I thought he made the receivers look really good. There was a handful of receivers / tight ends that I was very impressed with. One of them being Jamari Thrash. It was really good to see him getting involved. He's a guy to pay attention to in the next couple preseason games. But Tristan, the Browns invested a draft pick in DTR. Tyler Huntley has been around the league for many years, Pro Bowler last year. I think that the smart play here for the Browns would be to let both of these guys battle it out. And if things continue to be what they are, I think this battle is going to be close. And if it's even close, my opinion, trade Tyler Huntley. Trade Tyler Huntley, get a draft pick, keep DTR around. You have him on a rookie contract. I want to say he was a 5th-round draft pick.
I think it was either 5th or 6th.
I like the kid. Yeah. I like the kid a lot. I've been a huge DTR fan. I was a fan of what he did last year outside of the Ravens game, which I was at, ironically. I like him. I like the kid. This is a veteran college quarterback at UCLA, set records, comes into Cleveland, kind of a weird situation for him, getting thrown into the starting job. But you look at what he did last year in the preseason, and then even at times in the regular season, the Broncos game before he got hurt, I thought he looked solid. I thought he looked pretty good. I'm not getting rid of him. I'm not. I can't do it. What do you think?
This is one of the few times where I think we disagree. I think that DTR did have a good outing. And absolutely, I'm not going to disagree with you on that aspect. I thought Tyler Huntley also looked good. I think that where Tyler Huntley caught my eye was just how mobile that guy is. I mean, you can see why he was Lamar Jackson's backup. Because he really can extend plays and make stuff happen with his feet. And I thought that when he was throwing the ball, of course he only got 9 throws in. I thought he looked fine. I thought he looked good. I thought he made some good throws. There was at least like 1 or 2 that I thought should have been caught, but just didn't get reeled in. Who's Akins? I thought should have had one in particular. It was like one where he was falling to the ground and just completely just missed it. I thought he should have had at least 1 more reception. for himself. But no, I thought that Tyler Huntley looked good. I thought he looked explosive. We got to see more, you know. We got to see more of both of these guys. And you know, I think between Jameis and Deshaun, I think that next week they're probably not going to see the field at all. I think that this is going to be a half Tyler, half DTR type of game. And I'm excited to see it because it's going to be interesting what that battle ends up looking like. However, this is where I differ from you. I think that DTR has to pretty drastically outplay Tyler Huntley in order to keep his spot. And it may be unfair, but at the end of the day, this is a team that right now, around the quarterback, 100% is built to win a championship. 100,000%. And if it ever got to the point like last year where it did, I want my quarterback, that's my third option, to be a guy that has played games and won games as in the regular season. You know, won a lot, I should say. One more. And Tyler Huntley's done that. Like when he's had to step in for Lamar, he's looked completely unfazed. He's been a really good quarterback. And he's shown it against the top of the top competition. So I think that, you know, even though it's unfair because, and I agree with you on that aspect, it's unfair for us to necessarily give up on DTR this soon. But at the same time, with where we are, our position with this team, you know, let me put it to you like this. I mean, it's the fourth quarter. You know, we're down by 7, 2 minutes to go, and it's a game where we got to have it. Who would you rather have back there, DTR or Tyler Huntley? I know who I'm picking. I'm picking the guy who's been in that situation before and who's had success. It's plain and simple, and it's unfair. And listen, it's very possible that DTR outbattles him and earns that last quarterback spot, which I'd be happy with. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to root against the guy. I'm rooting for him. But I think that we're in a position now where this is a win now team. We're not completely sold on QB1 yet. We think that he's going to have that year where he's great, but it's not a certainty. We have to have experience behind him, guys that could step in and succeed. And I think that Tyler Huntley gives us a better chance.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with what you're saying on the depth standpoint. Had last year not happened, I'd be like, oh, that's ridiculous. Like, wow, can you think we're going to get down to our 5th quarterback? But we quite literally went through Deshaun Watson. Gosh, what was it? It was Deshaun Watson, PJ Walker.
Oh, my gosh. Who's the... PJ Walker, DTR, and then Joe Flacco. And then Jeff Driscoll.
But
Jeff Driscoll.
Jeff Driscoll. Yeah. So had that not happened last year, I would be sitting here saying, oh, well, you can't expect that. That's crazy. Well, it happened to us. So, you know, do I think it's going to happen again? No, I don't. I don't know if y'all can hear it. Knock on wood. Yeah, but I don't know. For me, here's what it comes down to. And I completely agree, right? If there was a situation where, you know, you needed your third string quarterback to come in a big time moment, yes, you would want to go with experience with Tyler Huntley. However, this is where I kind of veer off from you. I think for me, I had completely written DTR off. Completely unfairly, not deserved. I just thought he wasn't even going to get a shot. I thought that he was not going to be on the same level as Tyler Huntley. But the little things that you notice in the change of his style of play from last year to this year, the comfortability, the patience, the progressing, and doing what he does best, right? DTR is a playmaker. He extends plays, finds his man. He turns nothing into something for the most part, right? That's what we've seen out of him. Was it last night, 2 nights ago, whatever. I saw him do that on a higher level. And I think given the progression that you've seen from him, I there's just something there that it's the it factor, right? And I'm not saying DTR is a Hall of Famer, but when somebody has it, you can't really put into words what it is. It's just kind of a feeling, and you just kind of see it. I don't know, man. I can't do it. I can't get rid of DTR. Now, I will say this. This is all completely subjective. Like you said, we're going to see a lot of Tyler Huntley. We're going to see a lot of DTR. And if Huntley is just head and shoulders over DTR, then you're going to do what you need to do. And that's fine. This is a business, and it's in the best interest of the team to have the best quarterback out there. However, for me, DTR putting himself in that conversation to begin with is a testament to the progress that he's made for me, because I think Tyler Huntley is that good of a quarterback. And if this battle is close, I think for me, I would feel much more comfortable with a DTR now than previously, if that makes sense. So not in the situation of last year where you got a rookie quarterback coming in trying to win games for you. I think he's progressed, and I think he's progressed quickly. Need to see a lot more of it, that's for sure. I'm not going to sit here and put my stamp that DTR is the guy, but I do think this is a real conversation. I think this battle is one that is going to be interesting, because Huntley's been around the league, done great things. He was a Pro Bowl quarterback last year. But DTR's got that fight in him, man. And when you're getting chippy in a preseason game, you got something special, as far as a star next to your name from me. Because DTR, I don't know if you saw it, Tristan, he bought time, rolled out, got the first down, hurdled over somebody, turned around and pointed at him like, yeah, I just embarrassed you, pal.
And I just want to correct you. It wasn't last year Tyler Huntley was in the Pro Bowl. It was the year prior. Yeah, the year prior when Lamar got hurt. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I get it. Listen, I like DTR's potential. I agree with you. He's got a lot there that you like. And I'd go as far as to say if this guy was like a second round pick or a first round pick, I think that there would be teams that would commit to him potentially being the starter for them, because he's shown promise. I mean, he's got some stuff there that you like. The issue with me is just like, this is the all in year, like this is it. I just, and again, listen, even if we got to the position where our third quarterback had to play, it probably wouldn't be good, like similar to last year where it was just not a good situation. But at the same time, like, it did happen last year, and we gotta have somebody there that we can trust. And for me, I think just you can trust Tyler Huntley. He's played more ball. He's played better ball in regular season. I trust him more. Now, with that being said, I would be extremely happy, and where I would hope that what we can do with DTR is that we can get him on the practice squad and essentially protect him on our practice squad, so that way he can use this year to also develop. Because listen, there might be an alternative reality where let's say next year rolls around and Deshaun had a bad year, and DTR's taken some strides. Like, this guy in an alternate universe, he could end up being the starter, right? Like, I like the potential he's got. He's got good mobility. He's got crazy arm strength. And he's improved with his progressions in reading defenses. It's clear. Is it likely to happen? No, I would say it's very unlikely, like less than 1%. But at the same time, like, he's got the potential, I wouldn't mind having him around for sure. I'd be in favor of it, actually. I just don't know if that's going to end up being what happens. But he had a really good outing preseason week 1. I want to keep it positive with him. And I'm excited to see what he can do next week. It's definitely going to be an interesting game. And I'm looking forward to see how he does.
Yeah, for sure. But let's table this discussion. This is going to be something that is going to play out over the course of this preseason. I'm excited. I know you're excited. Let's talk about something that's not exciting whatsoever. This offensive line depth sucks. This offensive line depth is hot garbage. I was very disappointed with a lot of what we saw. James Hudson is hot garbage, and that is unfortunate because I thought he had made some strides. Obviously, he was a defensive tackle at Michigan, transferred to the University of Cincinnati to play right tackle or left tackle, whichever he played. He's not experienced at the offensive tackle position, right? But since he's been a member of the Cleveland Browns, he's improved. And he looked terrible. Now, going down the list, Jowon played some, which I thought was fascinating. But we're more so talking about the depth here, and unfortunately, Luke Whippler, who I had very high expectations for, broke his ankle, which is just a tragedy, absolute tragedy for him, for the Browns, and who knows, his future's kind of up in the air. It seems it certainly could be over. Who knows? Hopefully not, but you never know. And then Zak Zinter, gotta talk about it. Not good. Not a good first performance out of Zak Zinter. Tristan, when you look at the depth of this offensive line, obviously we know who the starters are, but the Browns have an interesting situation because you have Jedrick Wills coming off of injury, Ethan Posick coming off of injury, Jowon coming off of being banged up last year, Jack Conklin coming off of being banged up last year, Wyatt Teller and Joel Bitonio had their own little tweaks and injuries. This offensive line, when fully healthy, I have full confidence in. It's just not the reality. It's not the reality of what we've had to deal with the last couple seasons. We've had guys banged up. The depth behind did not look too pretty, Tristan.
Yeah, no, and listen, there's going to be a lot of factors for this, right? The offense is changing. We know this. It's the offense is changing. We got a new offensive line coach. There's gonna be some pieces in this where it's not looking great. I personally, I'm gonna choose to be optimistic here, because listen, we've seen these guys look solid before. James Hudson's been solid before. Zak Zinter at Michigan, he was solid. He was a good offensive lineman. It's his first snaps of NFL ball. If I'm gonna say to pause and wait and let's see on Sione Taki, I gotta say the same thing in regards to Zak Zinter. This is a guy that we loved the draft pick, right? We loved the draft pick, and some people loved it so much that before even seeing him in a Browns uniform, people were willing to trade away Wyatt Teller to get Brandon Ayuk so that way this guy could start, right? And let's just be honest, man. Like he didn't have a good game. He's gonna need to adjust to the NFL. I'm confident he will, but also he's recovering from a terrible injury. Like people are forgetting this. Like he had his legs snap in half in that Ohio State football game. Like it's not something that you can just easily bounce back from, and it's a completely new system and everything as well. Like he's dealing with a lot, and I think it would be best for him to have a full season where he plays minimally, which I'm expecting. And listen, losing Luke Whippler is absolutely concerned because he's a guy that I think you and I both were very optimistic about. Maybe not necessarily developing into a starter, but at least a guy that you could see contributing and whenever needed to be called upon, stepping in and doing well. and I don't know when you want to get into this, but luckily we figured something out with that position, to have an option ready to go for this year. I'm gonna choose to be optimistic about these guys, because I'm high on them. I've seen what they could do in the past. I've got to imagine that they had a bad game. They had a bad game. And in preseason ball, when you're fighting for your job, it's unacceptable. But sometimes unacceptable stuff just happens. I mean, look at what happened in the playoffs last year against the Texans. Like, our final game of the year. The defense was absolutely atrocious. Atrocious. Got dotted up left and right. And it's unacceptable. Even though they were excellent the whole year. It's unacceptable. But it happened. I think that we got to be optimistic about these guys because I love the talent they possess.
Yeah, I'm very, very, very disappointed with Luke Whippler getting hurt because I do think he could have been a starter. Like, when we drafted him, you got to remember, too, Luke Whippler coming out of Ohio State, everybody said he should have came back. Everybody said, hey, he had a great, great season, but, like, hey, he's too young. I want to say we drafted him at, like, 20 or something. He was very young.
Yeah, he's super, super young. I think we picked him in, like, the 6th or 7th round, something like that. Like a late pick.
Yeah. And had he come back to Columbus for one more year, I without a doubt, he's at least 3rd round or higher. I think that highly of him. So, yeah, I absolutely thought he could step into a starting role for the Browns, right? Ethan Posick re-signed him to a three-year deal. That was last year, so you figure, 2 more years? This season and next? Yeah, I mean, I definitely thought Luke Whippler could have been ready by then. And also, another factor here, Bill Callahan being gone, man. What a horrible time for that to happen. Happy that he's with his son in Tennessee, but for this offensive line and what we have coming in right now, would have loved to have had Bill here still. Yeah, Zak Zinter, I'm absolutely in agreement with you. I'm not giving up on him whatsoever. He did have a terrible performance, to say the least, but, what you said, he's coming off of a huge, 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 huge injury. That is a big, big deal. Now, I wonder, obviously, we'll get into it here in 1 second, but even though we did make a trade for a familiar face, I think Zak Zinter could end up getting some snaps at center, too. Zinter did play center some at Michigan. I think for what the Browns are going to need him for this year, being kind of a makeshift fill-in guy, whether that be center, right guard, I would argue even left guard if need be. Obviously, Michael Dunn's there, right? You have some options, but I think Zinter, he needs to progress. He needs to progress. This next game, he's got to get some redemption. I was very disappointed. I'm not giving up on him whatsoever, but it is kind of crazy because, yeah, there were people saying, Wyatt Teller, see ya, Zinter can start day one. I never thought that, but I did think as soon as next year, maybe he could be ready to go. I'm not so confident in that after seeing him on the field for the first time, that's for sure. But yeah, I think the Browns do have some concern here when it comes to how is this all going to shake out? How many tackles are you going to keep? What happens with Conklin? What happens, there's so many questions. So many questions.
Last thing I'll say on Zak Zinter as well, I'm just going to chime in real quick. I think that the fact that he's even playing preseason ball is such an accomplishment. Yeah. Like, seriously, I mean, like, what he had happen wasn't as bad as what Nick Chubb had to deal with, but it's on a similar level. The fact that he's playing preseason ball right now is insane to me. I think that this guy must have like gone through an insane rehab, and he's still adjusting, man. Like whenever you have an injury that bad, like, it's not necessarily just that, like the leg that he broke. It's not just that leg anymore. It's everything else that has had to work harder since he got hurt, like I remember after I had a ankle surgery, um, like I was on my left leg so much because it was the one that I had to rely more on. I said moron, haha. No, but like it's the one that I had to rely on, and I remember that once when I was walking on both legs again, I actually felt more pain in my left side because I had finally like gotten used to walking a certain way, and now I was changing it up, and it hurt. I don't know how else to put it. And he's got to be dealing with that right now because it's at a completely different level. Um, you know, I think that he'll come good. I'm confident he will come good, and I think that he'll look better in this game. And I expect that in the last preseason game against Seattle, I expect him to be at a level where I think we feel really good about him going into the year.
Yeah. Do you have anything else you want to add? We can transition here into to the trade.
Let me see if there was anything else that we didn't really touch on. Two guys, receivers. David Bell, I thought, looked decent in the reps that he got. I thought, especially out of the slot, did a really good job of creating space for himself, had secure hands. We had this discussion before. I'm not giving up on the guy. Clearly, he's got potential, and in that position, I think he absolutely can be a starter in the NFL. And I think he's.
Did he get hurt?
He did.
He get banged
He
up?
did get hurt. I don't know if he got put into the game afterwards. I didn't hear if it was like a significant injury. Certainly not as significant as Luke Whippler's. That's for sure. But by the sounds of it, it was just like a minor little like issue. So he should be okay. But then the other guy, you talked about him a tad. I want to just continue. Jamari Thrash. A lot of speed. Good route runner. He's crisp. He's polished. He's got good hands. That's somebody that I'm excited for sure. What will he look like as the preseason continues, and what will he look like if he can get into games in the regular season? It's going to be interesting to see where his development takes him. Last guy I'll talk about, a little bit disappointed that he didn't get more production, Cedric Tillman. Based off of the camp that he's been having, the reports coming out of camp, I was hopeful to see a little bit more in this game from him, but I'm not going to put too much on him. The offensive line was atrocious. Quarterback play I thought was okay, but again, offensive line, you got to win the game at the line of scrimmage. That's just point blank period. I think that we didn't do good enough on the offensive side along the line of scrimmage, and that's what ultimately cost us the game. But again, it doesn't matter. But with that being said, Derek, any final comments before we do move on?
Yeah, I wanna touch on Thrash. I was just grinning ear to ear listening to describe him, because what I saw from him on Saturday was a lot of what you saw from him in college at Louisville. What was he? He was a chain mover. He found the first down marker every time the ball was thrown his way. And at least every time he got a target thrown to him that I noticed, he was finding holes in the zone, getting open, moving the chains. And yeah, his route running looked really good. He looked apart as far as speed goes. And yeah, his hands, which were a question mark for me, was, how's that going to translate? Throughout camp, throughout practices, and now even into a preseason game, my concern as far as those things go, I'm not nearly as concerned. I think we do have something here in Thrash. I think he can be, at minimum, I think he can be the fourth receiver on this team here in a year or so. Something along those lines. But yeah, David Bell did look good when he was in there. That was good to see. It was kind of unfortunate that he did get banged up. And I want to see more out of Tillman. I have high expectations for Cedric Tillman this year. He's our only X receiver for the most part outside of Michael Woods, who I thought looked good too. So Cedric Tillman's going to have to carve out a role for himself. And it means nothing to be good in practice and not be good in games. So, yeah, I definitely want to see a little bit more out of some of our more key guys, if that makes sense, as the preseason goes on. But yeah, I was decently okay with what I saw. I liked a lot of what I saw. But yeah, moving on. So Luke Whippler gets hurt. It is a terrible, terrible situation. Very heartbreaking because I didn't really think it was that severe. And then they brought out the cart and I was like, oh no, yeah, he's gonna miss some time. I just talked about it, Tristan. I think Luke Whippler is somebody who could have stepped into a starting role in the future with the Browns. I still have hopes for him. I know this is going to be a tough injury, but like we mentioned earlier, he's very young. The Browns drafted him very, very young. But nevertheless, the question of, hey, now what? Well, that was answered very quickly. And before the podcast, we were talking about it. I was a little bit upset that I didn't even think about this. The Browns bring back a familiar face, Tristan. The Browns are trading a 6th-round pick to the Seattle Seahawks for one Nick Harris and a 7th-round draft pick. What say you, sir? The best fullback we've ever had is back. Outside of Peyton Hillis,
damn right, damn right. It's so funny. I was talking to my aunt. We were talking about like injuries with players and how they can derail a player's career, and I was telling her about Nick Harris's situation, about how he essentially 2 years ago was slotted to be our starter. First snap of preseason, he gets hurt, and Ethan Posich gets the job. He does well, ends up getting a $15 million contract, right? And how devastating that must have been for Nick Harris, right? Because that could have easily been him getting that contract. And now he's back. like literally minutes after we had that conversation. Boom. Oh, he's back. Okay. It was weird, but I'm happy with it. Like Nick Harris is a guy that, I think the Browns were expecting a lot from him. When I don't know if you remember, but that year that he had the injury in preseason, he was on the Building the Browns episodes, and he was a key figure. Like they were going into like his daily nutrition, like his daily workouts and stuff like that, like what he was doing to prepare to be the starting center for the Cleveland Browns. And it just didn't work out for him, and it was heartbreaking as a guy that was rooting for him. And seeing him at least have that role last year where he was like the extra lineman, the fullback, like that was cool. It was nice because at the end of the day, like I had a lot of hope for the guy. But I'm glad that he's back. I'm glad that he's gonna be. I mean, it's pretty set on, like nailed on. He's gonna make the team. But it's nice to know that he's somebody that can fit in here. Has had success with Stefanski, like it's nice. So I'm happy he's back. And who knows, maybe we'll see him play some center snaps and maybe earn himself a big contract next summer. We'll see.
Yeah, I don't know. It's funny how life comes full circle at you crazy, sometimes, right?
Bro, he just couldn't stay away from Cleveland, like.
Well, so I was about to say that's the funniest part. So Nick Harris went to Washington.
Yeah, went to Seattle.
And where does he end up? Yeah, no, he went to Washington.
Oh, with college, yeah.
Washington Huskies.
Yeah. Sorry.
Right. Ends up coming to Cleveland, and everything happens the way it does with us. And then he goes to Seattle, back to the state of Washington. He's probably like, yep, all right, well, didn't work out there. At least I'm home. We just go, nope, your home is here. Welcome back to Cleveland, dude. Yeah, I like Nick Harris a lot. I'm a big fan of Nick Harris. He's on the shorter end of things, but the dude's good, right? When he played, he was pretty good. The injury, like you mentioned, really, really derailed things for Nick, unfortunately.
I want to say he's taken some snaps at guard, too, for us.
I believe
so. Like, he has that versatility as well.
Yeah. And I honestly, I think Luke Whippler is just kind of the newer, maybe more high upside version of Nick Harris for us. I think that's what he was drafted to be, right? He was a guy, like we mentioned, really, really young, high promise, played outstanding in college. As far as giving up pressures, only had like a couple, I think, in a couple years, right? Him and Jowon were just locked down on the offensive line at Ohio State. And, really high hopes for Luke Whippler. He goes down with an injury. Nick Harris comes back in, and it's like, okay, how's this story going to play out? Is Ethan Posick going to actually be able to stay healthy and we won't have to worry about it? Or is Nick Harris going to come in and kind of plant his flag back in the city of Cleveland? I don't know. I'm happy to have Nick Harris back. I think, what you mentioned, he's versatile. He is very athletic for a center, getting up to the next level and kind of making plays. I like him a lot. Any center who can play fullback, sign me up. I want him on my team. It was kind of sad to see him go, to be honest, the first time.
Absolutely. I was devastated. I really liked him. Like, I did. I really did like him, and I was sad that when he went. Now it's just like, does he, like, get his old blocker back? Like, what goes on there?
Yeah.
Like that's got to be so weird for him. Just like imagine, like, just signing that deal in Seattle. Like, week 1 of the preseason takes place, and then you get called into the GM's office. You're being traded. Oh, dang, that sucks. Yeah. Where am I going now? Oh, you're just going back to Cleveland. Like, I hope your lease didn't expire, pal. Like, like.
Yeah, like, for real. Like, I wonder what those calls were. Like, I wonder if he called up his. Yeah,
bro,
I don't know. I know
gets a call from a Cleveland area code. Just guess who's back? Back again.
Yeah, for real. Well, so I know, like, in Pittsburgh, shithole city. My buddy. I don't want to out where they live, but it's called the Glass House. I'll just throw it out there. He may or may not. His parents may or may not have an apartment there because they travel from Pittsburgh, Columbus constantly. A lot of the Steelers players live there. I saw Juju Smith-Schuster's Ferrari when I was there. And this was right after he left the Steelers. His Ferrari was still there. And, those players, a lot of times, you think multimillionaires, a lot of them don't buy houses. A lot of them, find really nice apartment complexes or like condos or whatever, because they don't stay in a place forever, right? I really do wonder, like, what Nick's situation was, and I almost wonder. I bet it's so funny. I don't know if he's from Washington, but just his ties to the University of Washington and then signing with the Seahawks. I don't know why, but in my head, that's just like, okay, well, it didn't work out in Cleveland. I'm just going to go home. I'm going to go home, play for the Seahawks. And then it's like, nope, we need you back, pal.
Home. No.
I know. No. I don't know. But as far as the football side of things, I do think Nick Harris is more than the perfect answer for the situation that we just got put in with with Whippler going down. So, yeah, I mean, you now have Zinter, who can play guard, play center. Harris can play guard, play center.
Michael Dunn.
Michael Dunn. Yeah. So, I think it was for sure the right decision for the Browns to bring Nick Harris back. But, Tristan, we've been going an hour, and only me and you can make a preseason football game last an hour talking about it.
Damn right.
But I'd be remiss if we didn't bring it up. The Golden Boot himself, Cade York, first drive. I want to say it was first drive. Yeah. 55-yarder right down the middle. Looked like it could have went 65 yards. I was like,
where was this last year?
What are we doing? What are we doing?
It's crazy how stuff works out. Like, there's no doubt in my mind, Cade York at some point in his career is gonna be a good kicker, and he's gonna hold down a job for like at least a few years. Like, he's got the talent. It was everything that he went through in Cleveland was mental, and it's unfortunate that it was just a situation where we had to have a good kicker. And quite literally, the Dustin Hopkins trade last year probably won us like 3 or 4 games. like seriously.
Yeah.
Like, he was so key for us last year. It's crazy that just the universe plays out like that. You know, like I hope that excuse me. Ooh, excuse me. Sorry, it's 11:30 here. Phew. But you know, it's crazy how stuff plays out like that. Like, I hope he stays on the practice squad. like you know,
yeah, me
stay
too.
on the practice squad. You know, when Dustin Hopkins is ready to go, you can step in and be the starter. You know, maybe he'll be ready.
Yeah,
you know, who knows? But it's crazy how stuff works out like that, man. It's crazy.
You know what it's like? It's like that. Maybe not even friends, but like people who you think I'll never talk to you again. Like, you can know them, be friends with them, whatever. Something happens, you fall apart, whatever, and you're like, well, guess that period of my life is over. And the next thing you know, you just run into them, and you're like, oh, hey,
run into him at the grocery store, like, hey, how you been? And now you're like hanging out every Sunday. Like, what the hell?
Yeah. No, dude, I had that happen to me at work, and then at the gym. A couple kids I went to school with. Like, I'm like, I totally forgot you existed. I gotta be honest. Like, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, hey, how you doing? Yeah, well, you know, life is life. So, but yeah, full circle moment. Cade York returns. Nick Harris returns. You know, who's next? Are we gonna see a full circle Baker?
Oh my gosh,
is that ever?
Odell Beckham Jr.
Yeah. I say we bring the band back together. Let's re-sign Jarvis,
OBJ, Baker, all of them.
Yep. I say here's what I say. There's gonna be a lot of people that are gonna love this, right? I say we trade our next 3 first-round draft picks.
What you say?
Couple third-round picks, and a 5th or whatever it was for Baker.
You son of a bitch. I knew that was coming.
You know what's crazy though? There's people that
absolutely
will do it,
there will be. Oh my gosh, it's funny. Which actually, speaking of that trade package, let's go into our final topic here. Browns have already announced that Deshaun Watson will not be playing the second week of the preseason. Has nothing to do with physical fitness. He's 100% cleared for contact. According to the reports, he's going to play pretty much almost all of the reps against the Vikings against their ones. Like, he's going to be playing with the ones against their ones in the combined practice setting. Derek, you know, how do you feel that Deshaun Watson, given that he's only played 12 games in the past, 3 years, how do you feel that he's not going to be playing at all in the second preseason game? And if he does play any preseason action at all, it's going to be in the third and final game.
I've never understood it. I almost have the opposite philosophy when it comes to the preseason. I know a lot of people are like, oh, you don't want, players getting hurt, which it happens. We just saw it. And it happens across the league, and it's terrible. It's tragic. But at the same time, I'm not saying he should go out there and play all 4 quarters. That's not what I'm saying. But I think every starting quarterback should be playing at least a series or so in every preseason game, because there's something to be said about getting back in rhythm, getting back in the game speed, the flow of the game. You're going to get hit. You got to get used to it, right? And it's never a good thing, to go into game one being untouched, right? You got to get your body used to taking hits again. And, for Deshaun, it would be one thing if it was like, hey, shoulder's still not fully recovered, whatever. But if all reports are to be believed that he's good now, which he looks good, in camp and all those sorts of things, looks good. I think he needs to play. I think they're treating him a little bit too cautious, and I hope it doesn't come back to bite us in the butt. But with that being said, he's going to run with the ones in practice, like you said, with the Vikings. So that's a positive, but I still would like to see it in a game setting. That's kind of my stance on the matter. But
yeah, I agree. Especially when he's played as little football as he has. That's where it's concerning for me. When he's played as little football as he has, and also the fact that it's a bunch of new offensive coaches. I just think that for me, I'm with you, Derek. Like, personally with him, I would do like one series that first game, 2 series this game, and then a quarter the last game. And I understand that that's not conventional now. And it's quite risky considering he does have an injury history. But at the same time, this guy has not played enough football. Especially like that was something that we talked about last year. It was a talking point last year. When was the last time he's played like more than like 5 consecutive games? Like even that year that he came back from suspension, I think there was only like 6 games left. And he went 3-3. Like that was the longest stretch he's had as a Cleveland Brown, being the starting quarterback. Like a 6-game stretch, and you're gonna sit him out from the first 2 games of preseason? I don't know, man. That just all that matters is that he's ready to go week 1. If he's not ready to go week 1 and we lose, and he is at least part of the blame or a significant part of the blame, then this will fall on coaching and management. Because quite frankly, week 1 we've got the Dallas Cowboys. It's not like we're going out against Carolina, right? Like if we were going out against Carolina and you want to bubble wrap this guy for that game, fair enough, right? It's the Dallas Cowboys. Like this is a team that's going to be competing for a Super Bowl, albeit outside chance. They're going to choke it away no matter what. But still, like it's a talented team. We can say that. In week 1, he's going to have Micah Parsons breathing down his neck. Like, I'm sorry, but he's got to be ready. And I find it frustrating. I hope that he at least in the last preseason game gets a quarter. If he can get a quarter in that game, then fair enough. I mean, you have the joint practices this week. Maybe they're going to say, like, well, that's going to be similar to a game style setting. It's not. It's never the same. But who knows? Who knows? It's possible. We'll see. Yeah. But Derek, any other final comments before we wrap up the show today?
No, I think, I don't know. I mean, our opinion's not going to matter to Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry all that much, but I definitely think there's something to be said about getting a little bit banged up and roughed around before you start a full speed game, for sure. And this is the thing, right? What you just said. Oh, well, in practice, everything's full speed. If the Minnesota Vikings come out and sack Deshaun Watson really hard, like a normal hit, the bench is going to clear and there's going to be a fight because they're going to think, oh, you're trying to take out a quarterback. If that happens in a preseason game, that's normal football. I mean, it's frustrating. But nevertheless, Tristan, preseason football, we spent an hour and 10 minutes. Look at us.
Oh, look at us. That's hilarious.
But yeah, we'll be back with more after the next preseason game. And we'll see how things progress.
I promise an hour and 15 after that one. All right, guys?
There we go. We're just going to go up by 5
exactly.
every preseason game. But all right, everybody, go Browns. We'll see you in the next one, whenever that game is. I don't remember.